The fluorescent lights of the grocery store flickered faintly as Emily clutched her infant son closer against her chest, his tiny cries echoing softly through the nearly empty aisle. Her other hand trembled as she balanced a can of baby formula on her hip, the weight of the container feeling heavier than it should, heavier with the burden of choice, of sacrifice, of endless worry. She reached the checkout counter, her pockets jingling with quarters she had painstakingly collected over weeks from couch cushions, tip jars, and laundry machines. To anyone else, it might look like spare change, but to Emily, each coin carried the story of sleepless nights and desperate prayers whispered into the darkness. The cashier's sympathetic eyes lingered on her as she began to count, coin by coin, hoping she had enough. Behind her, impatient footsteps shuffled, sighs filled the air, and a wave of embarrassment flushed her cheeks. She felt exposed, small, and utterly alone, her voice breaking as she whispered an apology to her baby. For Emily, this wasn't just about formula, it was about fighting to provide, to survive, to hold on to dignity in a world that seemed indifferent to her struggles. She lowered her gaze, bracing for the cashier's quiet judgment, unaware that just a few feet behind her, someone else was watching, someone whose life was far removed from counting coins, yet whose heart was about to change the course of her night, and perhaps, her entire story. Michael Carter stood silently in line, his tailored suit and polished shoes a sharp contrast to the weary young mother before him. As CEO of a thriving tech company, he was used to boardrooms, stock tickers, and endless meetings where millions of dollars were discussed with casual detachment. Yet here, in this small-town grocery store, he found himself staring at the quiet resilience of a woman who was fighting battles far greater than market fluctuations. He noticed how her shoulders slumped under invisible weight, how her hands trembled while sorting the coins, and how she kissed her baby's forehead as though apologizing for circumstances beyond her control. Something stirred deep within him, a memory of his own mother, a single parent who once worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table after his father left. For the first time in years, Michael wasn't thinking about quarterly profits or business strategies. He was thinking about survival, about sacrifice, about the quiet heroes who rarely made headlines. The sighs of the customers behind him grew louder, but his focus remained locked on Emily. In that moment, she was not just a stranger. She was a reflection of the struggles that had once shaped him. And though he had long since climbed into a world of privilege, he suddenly realized that his success meant little if he forgot the very foundation it had been built on. He loosened his tie, leaned forward slightly, and prepared to do something that was neither strategic nor calculated, but simply human. Emily's throat tightened as she laid out the last of her coins, her heart sinking when the cashier's gentle voice said she was still short. The world seemed to blur as her baby whimpered, and she fought back tears, wishing for the impossible, a little more time, a little more money, a little more strength. Just then, she heard a low voice from behind, firm yet kind, "Put it on my card." The words were simple, but they sliced through the heavy air like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. She froze, uncertain if she had heard correctly, until the man in the dark suit stepped forward and slid his sleek black credit card across the counter with quiet authority. The cashier's eyes widened, and the other customers shifted uncomfortably, their impatience replaced by curiosity. Emily turned, her lips parting in disbelief, meeting eyes that carried warmth beneath their professionalism. She stammered, "Sir, you don't have to," but he only gave the smallest shake of his head, a gesture that silenced her protests before they formed. In that instant, Emily felt the crushing weight on her chest lift, replaced with a mixture of relief and gratitude so overwhelming it left her dizzy. She looked down at her baby, who now cooed softly, unaware of the stranger's kindness that would soon become etched into their story. Emily realized this was not charity, it was compassion, the kind that restores faith when the world feels unkind. And for Michael, it wasn't just about paying for a can of formula. It was about honoring the struggles of every mother like Emily, and perhaps, honoring the memory of his own. For a moment, time seemed to stand still at the checkout line. Emily's eyes glistened with tears she could no longer hold back, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Thank you. I don't even know your name." Michael offered a small, reassuring smile, the kind that carried both strength and gentleness. "Names aren't important," he replied softly, "what matters is that you and your little one have what you need tonight." The cashier quietly finished the transaction, sliding the formula into a bag, but her eyes lingered with admiration at the rare kindness she had just witnessed. Around them, the impatient sighs of the crowd had faded into silence, replaced by a hushed reverence. People shifted uncomfortably, some ashamed of their earlier annoyance, others moved by the unexpected reminder of humanity. Emily clutched the bag to her chest as if it were more than just formula. It felt like hope, tangible and real, carried in a stranger's act of generosity. Her baby stirred, letting out a small giggle, a sound so pure it softened every heart within earshot. Michael adjusted his cufflinks and prepared to leave, but something about Emily's quiet strength kept him rooted for a heartbeat longer. He recognized that resilience. He had lived it once before through his mother's determined eyes. And in that recognition, Michael felt a powerful sense of connection, a reminder that beneath the layers of wealth, success, and status, they were both just human beings navigating life's storms. Emily, still overwhelmed, whispered once more, "You have no idea what this means to me." Michael gave a slight nod, but deep down, he knew exactly what it meant. Michael stepped aside, ready to disappear back into anonymity, but Emily couldn't let the moment pass so easily. Gathering her courage, she asked, "Why would you do this, for me, a stranger?" For a brief second, Michael hesitated. Memories of his childhood flickered. His mother standing in a dimly lit kitchen, counting coins the same way Emily just had, her tired hands never failing to make sure he had enough. "Because once, someone did it for my mom," he answered quietly, his voice thick with emotion he rarely allowed himself to show. Emily gasped softly, taken aback by the unexpected vulnerability in this man who looked so untouchable. The store around them faded. It was as if only the two of them existed in that sacred exchange of truth. The cashier's hands paused mid-motion, her eyes welling up as she realized she was witnessing something rare. A man defined by success was peeling back his armor, revealing the heart that success had been built upon. Emily's lips trembled into a fragile smile. For the first time in months, she felt seen, not as a burden or a failure, but as a mother doing her best. The bag of formula weighed light in her hands now, no longer just sustenance for her child but a symbol of hope. And for Michael, the act was more than charity, it was a bridge to his past, a way of honoring his mother's unspoken sacrifices, and a reminder that kindness had the power to ripple far beyond a single moment. As Emily walked out of the store, her baby nestled peacefully against her shoulder, she felt a shift inside her, a quiet renewal of strength she hadn't known she still possessed. The night air was crisp, and for the first time in months, she breathed it in without the usual weight pressing down on her chest. Michael lingered behind, watching for only a moment before slipping away into the crowd, leaving no name, no expectation, only the echo of his kindness. What he didn't realize was that his small gesture had planted something lasting in Emily, the belief that goodness still existed in the world, even in strangers. Days later, as she fed her son with the formula that had once felt impossible to afford, she whispered a promise into the quiet room. That when her chance came, she too would be the hand that reached out, the voice that whispered hope into someone else's darkness. For Michael, the encounter stayed with him through board meetings and business calls, a reminder that true wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts, but in the lives touched by compassion. In a world too often divided by status, struggle, and circumstance, one simple act had bridged the gap between two very different lives. And perhaps that was the most powerful truth of all, that kindness, unannounced and uncalculated, carries the strength to transform not just a moment, but a future. Somewhere in that small town, a mother held her baby a little tighter, a little braver, because a stranger chose to care. And somewhere beyond, the ripple of that kindness had already begun.